Welcome back. This is World Insight with me, Tian Wei. 2,000 years history on the strings with this ancient instrument, pipa. Wu Man, a spirit-free artist, brings her world to your ears. She's the world's premier pipa virtuoso and as a leading ambassador of Chinese music. But she's keen to learn from and improvise with musicians around China and worldwide for something different, something that could touch all of us. Born in Hangzhou, Wu Man studied with masters at the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing, where she was the first person to ever earn a master's degree in playing the pipa. Her performances and multicultural collaborations earned the pipa a place in contemporary music. Many of these were with some of the most famous and outstanding musicians and conductors. You started 9 years old, if I remember right, playing pipa, practice it, and then you learned it with some of the biggest masters of pipa in China's modern history, and then you performed, you become a master, a known name in China, and then graduating from there to a global audience. But you know, over the years, how did you find your music? When did you graduate from the level of considering pipa as an instrument to a level of using pipa as a way of communication with yourself, maybe, and with the rest of the world?
Well, you know, I grew up in China, born in China, grew up in China. And when I learned this instrument, I was very young. I've been with this instrument for decades. I can't believe it. And I would say like my whole life. So I kind of rooted in this traditional music, which is I grew up in Hangzhou with a beautiful lake, you know the city, it's a beautiful city. And and then I really enjoyed the instrument because with such a long history, with a lot of literature and musical repertoire. But to me, I think pipa is alive. Pipa is not like a piece of furniture or wood. No, pipa have pipa life. Since I've been holding with the pipa for so long, I understand the pipa very well. I think the pipa also understand me. She's like a person to me. In Tang Dynasty, which is Chinese in the history, we all know this is like the most open mind and most diversity that dynasty. They're especially I visited China last year. I went to Dunhuang, visited the cave, visited the city, and I went to museum, I realized at that time there are so many people with the different colors existed.
Different races, different cultures.
Yes, they lived in the same place, the same city. They shared music, culture, a lot of things together, food, That the time, pipa that was introduced to China, to this land called China, but from Central Asia, from Persian, from Iran, from a lot of places from that area, and in the court music, there are a lot of music. The pipa master teachers in the local in capital city. So that's how pipa came from. For me, I wanted to looking for something bigger and to more people to understand the instrument, to understand the culture behind the instrument. Not only entertainment, like, oh, I play this, but I feel like we have to something to my experience to share with the people, to share with the people not from my background and not from the same culture. So that's I've been trying. You see, I'm kind of a very crazy, try to so many different genre and work with so many musicians and to experience that. Basically, it's a whole life. It's not only the music and the pipa. It's me, music, pipa, and Chinese culture.
Absolutely. And just think about some of the masterpieces. Some are bringing out the tranquil feel, others are bringing out the gigantic history, seems to be, within a piece of music. And there are also moments when tender feelings are being expressed just through playing some of the strings. But now you also try to experiment it. You travel to Shanxi, to Shanxi in China. You also went to Latin America, just try to bring in different elements. Tell me more about how this fascinating process has been for you.
Well, it is fascinating. There's two things to me from my experience. One is I wanted to looking for the roots of pipa. As I mentioned, pipa is not isolated in China only. The pipa is a part of a bigger plucking family, string plucking family. So pipa has a lot of ancestors and sisters, brothers, relatives, like a guitar, lute, oud, sitar, biwa, samisen, all those instruments, all from the same family. And so for the Latino music, they use a lot of guitar. So one day I was listening, I live in San Diego, so I have so many Mexican friends, and I visited Mexico, and there are a lot of music going on. Sound like what? Sound like a pipa. I can join them. I can play. So that's how musicians work together. But for Shanxi and Shanxi, this northern part of China, because I grew up in Hangzhou, which the urban city, very close to Shanghai, like beautiful lake. I never really been the northern part of deeply in the countryside, remote area, and I know their very rich Chinese traditional music exists in those small village. So I visited there. I shocked. I was really blown away from what kind of music, what kind of life, and the music function in their life. So I learned a lot. So as you mentioned, all those experiences actually nurtured me to understand more about music, and also to understand more about why I want to be a musician. What a musician, what is a musician? You needed to actually know the word much bigger, to understand what's going on, to understand, to learn more different culture. So that's how I feel like I've been learning every day. I always try to looking back or to rediscover what is a Chinese music. And a lot of people will ask me, especially I live in the outside of China. A lot of the time I travel and play with the musicians. So they will ask me like, "Hey, tell me what is the Chinese music?" That time I will stop, because okay, how can I tell what is the Chinese music? Yes, what is the Chinese music? Chinese music including so many different genre, not only instrumental, not only 琵琶、古筝、扬琴、笛子, that urban music, not only Shanghai or my hometown Silk Road bamboo music, Jiangnan Sizhu music. So there in the northern part, there are so many, like you mentioned, there are shadow puppets, there are storytellers, there are the local folk songs, mountain songs. There's so many things. So to me, like I mentioned before, I'm interested in not only play the pipa. I'm interested as a person. I enjoyed the life. I enjoyed to listen to so many kind of music. They touched you somewhere. You can get something. Like first time I visited Shanxi, Lao Qiang, the shadow puppet group, and when they played outdoor their house, they're in the field, and the dog was running around, the chicken was running around, the cat, all the villagers come together, and they just started banging their chair, and then they started shouting and play the fiddle. Erhu, huqin is very loud, but the energy you hear, you see that I was really goosebump. I feel like, wow, I never heard this kind of Chinese music. Now this is I wanted to learn. I wanted to know.
What about the other thing? It's not just the Shanxi. You actually work with Yo-Yo Ma, for example, and others on the Silk Road project, music project, and you've been continuously discover new things, and also, in a way, put pipa with your master skills to demonstrate what you have learned. How is that process like for you?
Well, for the Silk Road, the project or work with the Yo-Yo Ma, and also I worked with a lot of musicians from Silk Road country, from Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, in Syria, Jordan, all those countries, Afghanistan. The experience was amazing, but also I think we all together gathering together to looking for the music roots.
A group of musicians getting together and seeing what might happen when strangers meet. We scoured from Venice to Istanbul, Central Asia, China, and Mongolia, looking for incredible talent.
American orchestra, that's very interesting.
This was like the Manhattan Project of music. No one knew what was going to happen.
We definitely different. Like pipa have her own language, the own style, the very, very Chinese, rooted in China. So we have many space, the music like a Chinese painting. There are a lot of space, imagination, very time kind of free. But for a lot of Silk Road country, are rhythmically very strong. They're always dancing, the music. So that's different, but we definitely could play together. We can work together. So during all those process, this learning process, we not only I learned from them, but they also learned from me about Chinese music, Chinese culture. So I think that's the best way to communicate with a musician. And when you all together on the stage, you definitely show your enjoyment. Because you enjoy play together. So that moment also give to the audience. So the listener also get why you work together. What is the common point of the music, but what is the different? What is the Chinese music sound like? What is Afghanistan music? So that's, I think, the value of the musician and the music.
Absolutely. On the other hand, you're everywhere. Yeah, it's not just going east to your cultural roots, but also to the west. Of course, you're living in California. You've been jamming with the jazz musicians, and brought in some very different feels of pipa. I've never noticed before. I never know that pipa could have that kind of personality, could give that rhythm, could breathe, just like you managed to let her do. Tell me more about that process, because the jamming thing is always extremely exciting.
First time, 20 years ago, I played with a jazz musician, and they asked me to improvise, and I was really, stuck. I said, what did that mean? The music I grew up with, the Silk Road silk bamboo music, Jiangnan Sizu. That's all my old teachers, they all improvised. So again, rediscovering Chinese music, rediscovering my roots, because I learned from other culture. I learned from them, and they remind me and bring me back to my roots. So even deeper. And I think people, of course, I improvise.
Yeah.
Why not? This is my culture.